Thank you for joining I Am Possible, which is India's first future tech meets sustainability podcast. And today I'm delighted and honored to have with me Mr. Yashash Agarwal, who has been the youngest Asian in consumer tech and youngest Indian overall in Forbes Asia 30 under 30 list. And Gamezop was recently listed amongst the 100 startups to watch out for in the Forbes Asia list. So Yashash, really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast. Why don't we start with a brief introduction, because that's what I do with all my guests.
Sure. Thank you for that kind intro, Ellie. I'll talk a little bit about what we are doing here at Gamezop. If you think about what do people spend time on online, right? You would realize that broadly that can be bucketed into four things. People are either watching stuff, could be YouTube, could be Netflix, could be TikTok, Snapchat, and the likes, or they are reading stuff, blogs, news, Reddit, and such like, or they're listening to stuff, podcasts, music, Clubhouse these days, or lastly you're playing games, right? So broadly there's four buckets. You're either watching stuff, reading stuff, listening to stuff, or playing games. And this one observation that we had was that for all of these categories, besides gaming, uh, there are platforms, right? It's not like every new podcast is an app. It's not like every new video is an app, right? There are platforms where all of this is accessible. However, for games, that's not the case, right? Every new game is an app, and games are the only format out of these four where you don't have this barrier of language. I can't read news in Russian, but a game in Russian, sure, I can play it a few times and maybe understand what's happening. So when we started Gamezop, we had this one objective, and that was, could we remove the friction of app installs when it comes to consuming games, and is there a business to be built out? We felt that there was a good business to be built there, primarily because YouTube did somewhat the same thing for video. You would recall pre-YouTube days, we used to download videos and play them on VLC media player and whatnot. And I don't think I've had a video player on my system for the longest time. Streaming became so mainstream, right? And this whole ecosystem of video apps came about. So that's what Gamezop does. At the core of what we do, we aim to remove the friction of app installs when it comes to casual games. Sure, really large games, your Call of Duties and Free Fires and the likes, they should be on your phone as apps because people play them for a long time. But when it comes to simple casual games, we feel that app installs are a bit of a barrier. With that context, what Gamezop does is we basically operate in the HTML5 gaming space. HTML5 games are essentially web games. These are games that one does not need to install. They can be played inside mobile browsers, inside desktop browsers. They could be embedded inside other apps, so on and so forth. Now, what we do is that we are a bit of a content platform, where on the one hand, we work with game developers. Our core specialization is not to build games. We source games from other developers around the world. Think of casual games like Ludo, Carom, Pool, Tic-Tac-Toe, and such like. So we source games. We sort of bring them in-house. We optimize them to work on low-end devices, to work on slow internet speeds, and so on and so forth. And where our model is really unique as a business is how we get our distribution, or essentially how we get our users. Conventionally, you would see startups, most companies, they spend a lot of marketing dollars to bring users onto their app or onto their website. What we do slightly differently is instead of taking that approach to distribution, we partner with lots and lots of apps and websites that have a lot of traffic. And we embed our games inside those apps and inside those websites. Right? Now, what I mean by that is if you think of, again, just the whole YouTube example, you consume a lot of YouTube videos in the YouTube app or in the YouTube site, but you also see YouTube videos embedded, in news sites and blogs all the time. And exactly in that manner, HTML5 games, these web games that we have, they can be embedded inside other apps and websites. So I'll give you one example and probably wrap up the introduction. But let's say you take Oyo, right? We primarily focus on non-gaming apps and websites. But think of an Oyo. You open the Oyo app, you'll see a play and win section where you can play some games and win some rewards. Those are games powered by us. You open the MX Player app, you'll find a bunch of games alongside their video offering. and many of those games are powered by us. You take the Go IBBO app, you'll see that there are games in there, and many of those games, again, all of those games incidentally are powered by us. At the heart of all of it, why do these apps and websites like to have casual games within their offering? Two core reasons. Reason number one is people have fun playing games, and I wouldn't go to an Oyo app every day. I wouldn't go to a Go IBBO every day. I don't have to book a ticket every day. But if I go there and I'm doing a booking and I like a game that I see inside that app, there's a good chance I'll go back just to play that game. And in the process, that app has a returning user, right? It has more engagement, it has more retention. In addition to that, what we do for these partner apps is every user that comes to us from a partner app, when I say partner apps in this example, I mean the Oyos and the Go IPOs that I took examples of. We show ads to users to generate revenue, and whatever ad revenue is generated, we keep half of it and we pass half of it to the partner app, right? So when apps partner with us, when websites partner with us, our core offering to them is to say that have games, they'll increase your engagement, they'll increase your user retention, and we'll pay you for it. Right? So to put it all together, we remove the friction of app installs when it comes to casual games. And the way we do it is, instead of being present as one app on your phone, we want to be present within all the apps that you use on a day-to-day basis through our partnerships. Right. So that's at a broad level what we do at Gamezop. I'll pause here once and let you ask me any questions you might have, because this has been a rather long intro.
Now, lovely. How cool is that? You mentioned that you started 6.5 years ago, and you saw a problem with the gaming industry, and you have very smartly and kind of leveraged that problem and created a business opportunity. You mentioned that you do not develop those games on your hand. How does that work? I mean, what's the partnership model with the developers? Because you mentioned with the partner apps, there's a 50% stake, and it's super exciting because, a boring app can now, I mean, I don't know whether I'm using the right term, but I mean, a casual app of a company could be fun with games which that can be added through Gamezop. How does the process work with the game developers? What's the partnership over there?
So yeah, I think that's a very interesting question. That's one that so far we've kept a one-time transaction. What that means is that most often we would just pay these developers to get a license to use the games. We feel that that's worked for us so far, largely because back when we started, HTML5 games were not quite where they are today, just in the form of the tech that powers all of it. Back then, we had to spend a lot of time in optimizing these games, in making sure they work properly across browsers. You'd recall the days when there were UC browsers and Opera Minis and God knows what not on mobile phones. So we'd optimize for all of those. And we were doing a lot more of the value add even from the game content layer, right? But as a company, we are gradually opening up with a select set of partners. We started to consider doing a revenue share model as well, and sort of exploring that path where we do a 3-party rev share between ourselves, our distribution partners, as well as the content partners. But so far, it's primarily been focused on a one-time sort of transaction with the developers.
Right. Who are your competitors at this point in time? 6.5 years. How many games you had, and today, what are the numbers of the games that you have on your platform? And with this 5G and AI converging, and more the younger generation, getting into games. I've got a 7-year-old boy. And he's hooked onto games. He's hooked onto virtual reality games as well as, your 2D flat screen games. And I'm not a gamer at all. But I see the world, there is industries leveraging gamification, I mean, because I see education leveraging gamification. I see training and work leveraging gamification. So maybe address the entire industry, and India. Possibly, where do you see the entire gaming industry going in the next few years?
Super. So I'll answer the simpler question first, which is how many games did we have back then and how many are we at now. Naturally, we started at 0 games, and we are at a little over 200 games now. And many of these games have been recycled over time because, as I said, we operate within the space of hyper casual games. So not all of these games have a very, very long shelf life. So you do recycle them, remove some of the old ones, get some of the new ones in. That's just as far as the number of games goes. The good thing about our catalog is that we've been able to maintain a sort of a homogeneous traction between these games by ensuring that we circulate the games well before the eyes of the users, instead of like looking for a select set of games that really outperform the others. Having said that, to the broader question of gamification and where gaming is headed, I think why gamification works so well, and this is again, it applies to non-gaming apps also, is because inherently people seek fun, right? It's very first principles thinking. Inherently, people want to do things that are fun, and so it's there was this very interesting example I had once read where Microsoft had to, I think it was with Windows 7, they had to find a lot of, so it was a very buggy release, right? Pre-release, and they had to find as many bugs as they could, and the QA team was sort of falling short of hands. What they did was they said, okay, every bug you report that's valid gets a certain number of points, and every global office is sort of stacked up on a leaderboard saying which office reports the most number of bugs in a given week or a given month, right? And the number of bugs reported shot through the roof because you sort of gamified this whole experience, right? You brought in competition. So gamification, I think, inherently doesn't. It's more about using game elements, which could be more behavioral instead of using games itself. Naturally, even using games are a great way to gamify. Again, to give you an example, I think what Oyo is doing, right, with Gamezop games, interestingly, is to have their users compete and to win certain rewards, right? It's a lot more fun to win a cashback voucher than to just be given it on the face. Your recall is much higher, right? You've played a game, you've tried to earn that voucher, and when you get it, there's a much higher chance that you'll use that voucher using games. So I think gamification is very all-pervasive. Gamification, I think, has a very, very large overlap with product design and product management. And I think products that are able to effectively use gamification, they're able to unlock wonders. We try on a day-to-day basis to sort of inculcate gamification elements into our products, and very inspired by some of the products that are able to do it well. On the point of where gaming is headed broadly for India or globally, especially with 5G, with AI convergence and whatnot, well, I think one of the more dominant trends recently has been the Web3 space and the whole blockchain space. If you look at the overall gaming industry, right? Like, I don't know the latest figures, but let's round it off and let's say it's $200 billion as an industry, right? Somewhere there. A lot of this is just spending that's going into in-app items, right? You're buying swords and you're buying guns and you're buying skins and whatnot. Now think about it. When you buy a laptop, when you buy a refrigerator, when you buy something, you have a second-hand market for things. You have an OLX. You know that, okay, there's a secondary value to what I buy. I can probably sell it off later and somebody will buy it. And that, what that does, the knowledge of the fact that there's a secondary market, what that does is that as consumers, it allows us to be a little more sort of free-handed with the way we purchase. It's because we know that there's a certain value that we can receive from it, should we not want to keep it later, right? But that does not apply to games. And what really fascinates me about the Web3 space, and why I think it might be a defining trend of where gaming goes, is it's basically creating the second-hand market. You pay for things inside a game, but when you feel that, I've had enough and I want to move to the next game, if I can sell what I've purchased inside games, even if it's for lower than what I bought, sure, there's speculation and there's all of those things, but even if eventually, right, the state of gaming becomes such that I can sell my in-game items in a second-hand market, that might allow people to be a little more free-handed with the spending that they do inside games, right? We all know that India as a country does not spend a lot inside in-game items as compared to, say, a China or a US. Yes, I think that's very interesting about Web3. If it can even move the needle by a few percentage points, right, on how if it means that people spend 30% more inside games. That means a lot in terms of the global sort of gaming industry. Right? So I think broadly that's one trend I'm very excited about in terms of where gaming is headed.
Right. Yeah. So the in-game purchases are growing. You're saying in India the numbers are not so high. There are platforms such as Roblox, Epic Games. There's some very interesting movement happening. We're breaking away from a 2D medium. Web 3.0. We all talk about the future, where we'll be breaking out from the 2D platform, which has restricted us over 100 years, and get into the 3D world. As an entrepreneur who has been quite successful in creating a gaming industry, what's your views on AR and VR games? Do you have a plan to kind of leverage that in, look possibly having maybe augmented reality, virtual reality games in the future? Plan for to be ready for the metaverse?
Well, so I think okay. Just cautionary note for the listeners. I'm not one of those hardcore gamers. I play my simple casual games, and I've had the good fortune of trying a few of these AR VR games. What sort of makes me a little unsure about where they're headed is just the sort of supporting infrastructure you need, all the headsets and the glasses, and I think that's a bit of a limiting factor. And I'm pretty certain that the industry will see simpler sort of base requirements to get started. If you think about it again, I'm drawing this parallel to the Web3 space, but if you look at blockchain, right, like right now, a lot of just getting set up in a blockchain game is understanding wallets and understanding cross-chain transfers of tokens and whatnot, right? And that's 50 things you need to do before you get into the game, right? So it's sort of similar with AR, VR, and maybe there'd be solutions that address it. But if that part of the journey becomes simpler, then I think just purely in terms of the entertainment experience, right? Like assuming that um, you are a savvy user, and on the one hand you have a phone where you're playing, let's say, 2D, 3D games, or on the other hand you have this whole augmented reality, immersive reality experience. I definitely feel that that's slightly better, right? But as a company, are we building something there? We are not. I think that might be a little bit of an overinvestment at the moment. If we do see the emergence of gear that sort of allows in a very very easy and sort of economical way access to AR VR, then I think it would be really interesting, and that's when we'd want to sort of look at that space a little more actively. At the moment, Gamezop's just pushing partnerships and bringing games to non-gaming apps and websites.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. So you rightfully pointed out, there are lots of frictions when it comes to augmented reality, virtual reality games. The virtual reality headset itself is really, really expensive, but with augmented reality games, you can play it on your smartphones, So there is that move or push for us to, get into the Web 3.0. And there's, I think, companies from all around the world, be it Geo from India to Meta, are everyone almost everyone are laying the groundworks to be ready for the metaverse, because it could take maybe 10 years, but that's where the future is heading. So it's an exciting space. You mentioned about blockchain games. The gaming industry itself is kind of in a space where there are so many mad changes which is happening. There's play to earn games, then the real money game which Skillclash is doing. Could you kind of maybe unpack that and maybe also talk about Quizzop?
If you look at play to earn, right, it's effectively it sort of ties back in. I mean, not 100%, but it stems out from that similar idea of a second-hand market, right? Like that's the base of being able to sell what you sort of either pay for and buy within games, or what you earn within games, right? Let's say that conventionally, right, if you think of most games, let's take a Clash of Clans, let's take any of these really successful titles. What are you effectively paying for? Either you're paying for skins and visual sort of enhancements, or you're paying for time, right? You have an upgrade that's happening. You could either wait for 8 hours for that upgrade to happen, and for your village to get the benefit of, let's say, that leveled up building, or you could pay some money and you could do it a little quickly. Uh, very similar in the block three in the Web3 blockchain gaming space, right? You could either sort of purchase NFTs and get into games and play with those NFTs and level them up, or you could grind and spend a lot of time and sort of earn those NFTs and then sell them off in the second-hand market, right? So, in a lot of ways, play to earn sort of stems from that. I wouldn't say stems from, but it's linked to that idea of being able to sell your in-game items. Um, However, you do see that there are several blockchain games that have taken it a step further. You do have NFTs, which you can sort of earn. You do have utility tokens inside games that you earn from doing several activities. And effectively, what's happening is that massive chunk. So in-game items that you purchase, 30% would go to Google or to Apple. I think it's 15% now to Google, but the rest of it would effectively lie with the game publisher and the game developer. But now a lot of that is being passed back on to the end users, right? And where I see that headed is that eventually, I think it becomes, I mean, the way I see it is that I think eventually it will become a lot more mainstream for as the plumbing around all of this becomes a little smoother, as it becomes easier to get onboarded into blockchain games. I think that will become a very basic fundamental of how games are, right? Like 15 years ago, it was not common for people to have their servers on, let's say, an AWS or a Google Cloud. But now that's the de facto standard, right? It's very surprising to hear of companies maintaining their own servers, right? Especially early stage ones. So I think 5 years from now, 7 years from now, 10 years from now, where gaming would be is probably games would just by default be blockchain games, because why can't I sell sort of what I have got inside games, right? Having said that, I think that is still different from real money gaming. To your point about Skillclash, Skillclash is a product that we've been building for about 2 years now. That is slightly different from how Gamezop operates. While Gamezop distributes via partnerships, Skillclash is more B2C, more direct in its distribution. Skillclash is accessible on its website, on the Android app that it has. And what it is essentially a real money gaming product. It's India only. You can go to Skillclash and you can play games and you can earn money. However, the way it's different from the Web3 space is that it's you've got to put in money to earn more money, and it comes under the whole regulated area of, well, it's not exactly gambling, but at the end of the day, there's skill based. It's more like wager in a sense, right? So you pay certain money, you compete with others, and the better person in terms of skill wins the game, and you walk away with a prize pot. So that's what Skillclash does. We have a wide variety of games there, and very fun games, carom, pool, rummy, and the likes. How Skillclash is different from others in this space is that, again, core to our original philosophy of removing this friction of app installs, Skillclash is a web-first offering, which means that it gives you all the benefits that an app would, except there's no friction of an app install. You have your notifications, you can add it to your home screen, all of those things. And that's a product that we are pushing really hard and trying to find. I mean, we're doing very interesting stuff there on understanding the data that we're getting from users. So that's about Skillclash.
How does Skillclash make money? Because you're saying that for the gamers, I mean, you have other gamers where you can clash with, and how does Skillclash make money over here?
The way any real money gaming company would sort of make money, right? Like let's say you and I go to Skillclash, and you and I are let's say chess fans, right? And we want to play a chess game, and you put 100 rupees and I put 100 rupees, and we get into a chess match. The winner does not get 200. The winner gets, say, maybe 180. So the remaining portion is where Skillclash would make money, right? So that's your rake or your commission on the match.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. Would you like to talk about Quizzop?
Quizzop represents a very interesting line of thinking for us at Gamezop. Over the past few years, we've kept our head down. We've been very focused on growing our understanding of our products and growing our number of partnerships. We've been able to, I gave you examples of GoIBibo and Oyo and such like. In total, we've been able to grow to over 4,000 such partnerships, which interestingly gives us a very wide reach for our games. Our games are played by over 40 million users every month on the back of these partnerships, right? And what we started to think about sometime last year was, what's our biggest strength as a company? Is it our games? Is it our product? Like, what is it that's really making us unique in the space we are in? And what we understood was our our biggest strength, undoubtedly, is this massive distribution network that we've got, and effectively, we kind of sit on this ad. It's like sitting on a small ad network. When you have so many partners pushing your product to their users in exchange for a revenue sharing model. So sometime last year, what we started to think was, do we stay a do we remain a game distribution company? Not that that's a small space; it's a very large space. But is there also merit in sort of going up from being a game distribution company to a content distribution company? Right? Do we only distribute games, or can we distribute other forms of entertainment? So what Quizzop represents is an attempt on that front, where we started with something which all of us love, which is fun facts and trivia and quizzes. And what we started to do is exactly along the same lines of Gamezop, where we do a revenue share with apps and websites who distribute our product. We do a revenue share with Quizzop partners and with Quizzop sort of app developers and website developers who send traffic to Quizzop. But it is a quiz offering, and it's not a games offering. So on Quizzop, you find fun quizzes across a whole bunch of categories. You've got lakhs and lakhs of questions to entertain people. And what that tells us as a company is, we can very effectively push more forms of content. Should we get into short videos, aggregate a bunch of short videos and sort of have a web-based offering there and push it down the distribution network and sort of see what the numbers look like. So I think that's where our thinking is headed with the Gamezop and the Quizzop, and for the lack of a better phrase, the Zop family.
Lovely, lovely. We wish you the best. Yeah, and I think the content space is gonna completely explode. With the creator economy and the frictions which are disappearing in content creation and distribution and monetization. I think that's gonna be a huge, huge opportunity. You recently raised a 32 crore. You started 6.5 years ago. Would you like to talk about your journey, share insights to those entrepreneurs who wish to do something like you, maybe, and point out the challenges and the pitfalls?
Yeah, most certainly. I think this might draw some criticism, but here at Gamezop, both Gaurav and I, so Gaurav's my elder brother, and we are the two co-founders here at the company. And from the very early days, this whole idea of why look at distribution partners and not sort of go out and spend a lot of money in advertising, all of this at the core of it stems from this desire to be financially sustainable and efficient. And what I mean by that is, every now and then you hear of companies, who are doing large numbers, but deep in the red. You've seen what happened to the Paytm stock and so on and so forth. And this scale, and maybe there's some line of thinking there, right? I'm not saying that that's wrong, but that's not where we come from. What we always have wanted to build is a business that actually generates money, and why that gives us a lot of comfort, why that allows us to sleep a little more peacefully at night, is just the simple knowledge that we won't be firing our employees, in a given bad month. And fortunately, we've been profitable. We were profitable back when we raised that 32 CR round. It was effectively, we were very lucky because we got some fantastic backers in Bitcraft and others. And that does prepare us for expanding into a lot of areas within gaming, their massive knowledge and their connections in the space. But it wasn't due to a sort of runway, right? We've had these conversations with young analysts at venture capital firms, where they've been trained to ask this question, right? Like, what's your runway? And to which we'd say, no, we are profitable, so we are sort of adding cash, right? So there's no finite runway. And then they'd be like, okay, but what's your runway? So it's just very reflective of how this space has been in terms of many startups and this very accepted now truth of being loss making, which doesn't sit well with us. So we've always been very inspired by the likes of, say, a Zoho or a Freshworks or all of these people, right, who've actually built businesses that will last for a long time, and that are profitable and generate good returns for the investors. So I think that's what our journey has been. We've always tried to find cost-effective ways, even if at times it's been it's. I mean, like, for all the people out there, for listeners who might share this thinking, oftentimes you might find yourself wondering, is that the fastest path? It isn't, not all the time, but it's just a choice you make, and we are very happy that we sort of did that. It's allowed us to grow very comfortably. And yeah, I think that's my biggest sort of word of, like, I don't think I'm capable of giving advice, but I think that's my biggest takeaway, that we've been very happy about. And yeah, I think I shouldn't leave the question without a cliche. So the cliche that I believe in most is the value of the team, which is something, again, that we've seen massive benefits from. If you have a solid team, it's there's nothing quite like it. You can sort of overcome any challenge. So I think, yeah, don't accept losses, and don't accept substandard people. I guess those are my words of advice.
Lovely. Yeah, how basic, but if you stick to the basics, I mean, you will have a business which will flourish always. Thank you. Really appreciate, Yashash, talking to us and sharing your insights. What comes next for you as well as Gamezop and the entire Zop
Zop family?
Zop family.
Yeah, we've got to find a better, I think, phrase to sort of capture that essence. But yeah, I think what comes next for us is we're currently distributing 3 products. We have Gamezop, we have Quizzop, and we've got Skillclash. The way we see, sometimes it's hard to sort of see how they all tie together, but effectively for us, Skillclash is also a product that we eventually want to distribute through our distribution pipeline. But the more you work with such partners who distribute content for you, the more you realize how short people's patience is. And Skillclash is a product that we're trying to figure out how to sort of make profitable. And until you do that, you can't really distribute it down the distribution pipeline that we built. So we're very patient that way. Happy to take it to a green, profitable status, and that's when we take it to the distribution pipeline. So I think on the one side of what we have right now, it's about identifying what products sit well with the kind of partnerships that we have, and how can we iterate quickly on those products and give handsome returns to the distribution partners that we have for distributing our content. You and I'll give you examples of an Oyo, and I'll give you examples of an Airtel and a Samsung. But the core truth is that those are not 4,000. There aren't 4,000 such apps and websites out there, right? So the bulk of our partnerships are small app developers, small studios, and we are sort of responsible for that monthly revenue share, because for a lot of them, that's what pays their bills. So I think, on the one hand, it's about identifying new growth opportunities there. We're very excited about short video as well. And on the other hand, we have been doing our homework on the whole Web3 space, gathering our learnings and identifying what we want to build there, because we're very sure we do want to build in that space. We're very certain that the future of gaming is in blockchain. Is it going to be defined as blockchain gaming, or does blockchain just become the norm? Only time will tell. But that's an area that we've got some interesting ideas in, and we're sort of excited to see what we eventually put our foot down on and build in that space.
Lovely. Yashash, thank you for chatting with us. Yes, you have built a really great unit, a great company which has served you guys well and is serving you well. Yeah, and you rightfully pointed out, the Web 3.0, I think it's going to be a complete game changer of sorts, because that convergence of artificial intelligence, AR, VR, MR, 5G, IoT, blockchain, NFTs, the next iteration of the internet that we talk about, that we are all excited about. It's very kind of difficult to kind of describe it in words, but it is coming, and it's really coming really fast. And I think there is not one industry which is not going to get affected. And I think gaming is going to be such a core over there. Like I mentioned earlier, we're going to break away from those 2D platform into the 3D world. And how cool it would be if gamers could not just play games but experience game. Touch, feel the virtual world. So it's an exciting space. Thank you once again for being part of the podcast. Wish you and your team the very best. And to my listeners, if you like what you see in here, then please press the subscribe button. Until next time, see you guys. Bye bye. Thank you, Yashash. Really appreciate this.
Thank you, Ali.